This time on Fifth Gear, we find out if the new version of the legendary Porsche 911 has met its match in the shape of the 570S supercar from McLaren.
Wow, look at the grunt!
We get a first look and drive of the brand new Toyota Corolla.
That's a Corolla!
Even Toyota admit previous versions of the car were dull, so have they finally produced something interesting?
It looks great.
I don't know about great, Jimmy.
As the Mini celebrates its 60th birthday, Vicky drives a couple of original models that have been dragged into the 21st century with radical changes under their skin.
It's engaging, it's a joy, it's really, really sweet.
Jimmy DeVille gets behind the wheel of the Lotus Elise Series 1 to find out how its groundbreaking chassis changed the future of sports car design.
I can lift up the chassis of a Lotus.
Absolutely.
And Johnny's in South Korea, exploring the world's biggest autonomous car testing facility.
Oh gosh, it's even indicating and everything.
But first, it's time to head to the track for a supercar dogfight. And this time, it really is a clash of the titans. It's McLaren versus Porsche. This is the new Porsche 911. Granted, it looks like virtually every other 911, but this is the 8th generation and is based on an all-new chassis.
And we're excited about this because after 56 years of production, 911s have become the benchmark by which all supercars are judged.
Famed in Formula One, this is McLaren's brand new supercar, the 570S. Now, they only started mass-producing road cars back in 2011, and I didn't care much for their first effort, the MP412C.
I'm the same, it's got less confidence in this. I'm not feeling the car as much.
But since then, their road car division has gone from strength to strength. So has this new McLaren got what it takes to topple the 911 from its throne? Well, there's only one way to find out.
Right then, where's my wingman? Ah, Karun.
Hello. Joining me and putting his F1 experience to good use is Karun Chanduk, and we've got 3 track tests lined up to find out which car offers the best overall performance.
I'm feeling a bit generous. Which keys do you fancy?
Maybe the McLaren today.
There's the Porsche stuff.
Every time.
First up is an agility test. Now, supercars are frequently judged by their punchy headline stats, things like power, 0 to 62, and top speed. But we all know that supercar drivers like actually driving. So this test will see which of these two is the most nimble.
Now, the 911 comes in just 2 flavors at the moment, the Carrera and the Carrera 4S, which is what I've got here today. Now, that means 4-wheel drive and bags of traction.
The Carrera 4S normally costs £98,000, but that particular car is loaded with £13,000 worth of performance extras, which includes rear-wheel steer. And that's a system which will help guide the back of the car better round tighter turns. So Karun's got plenty of help on this one.
The plan is to steer our cars through a 5-cone slalom before making a hard left turn and back around 180 degrees to the finish line.
Karun and his 911 are up first.
Right, I'm ready.
Right, up towards the slalom now. Flick the car through, using that 4-wheel steering. Pick up the power. Hard on it, upwards. Don't overshoot, don't overshoot. Click it in. Stay with the throttle. Oh, bit of oversteer across the line, but dramatic finish, got there.
20.9 seconds. Not bad.
Right, let's see what I can do in the McLaren.
So, no 4-wheel drive system going on in here. The 570S is good old-fashioned rear-wheel drive, which could be a downside on this test. There's also no rear-wheel steering.
But I'm not worried. This is lighter than the Porsche by 125 kilos, and in this kind of car, that makes a big difference. The better power-to-weight ratio will really help in a tight slalom course. And like Karun, I've also got adapted dampers and carbon brakes, but they don't cost me any extra.
Plato's been banging on about the options of my Porsche. But what he's failed to mention is that the base price of his McLaren is 50% more at £150,000. Oh, and he's also got 26 grand worth of option carbon bits on it.
He's not wrong. My spoiler, intakes, engine cover and brakes are all carbon fibre extras, and expensive ones at that. But these are going to help me leave that Porsche for dust.
Right, prepare to be bedazzled. I'm going for a 20 dead.
I'll take another step back, shall I?
Oh, come on, JP, we're off. Right, traction. Nice and neat through the cones.
He clipped the last cone.
No prizes for neatness, Karun, and no penalties either.
Overshot the corner.
Oh, this looks quicker. 20.65.
So the Porsche was a third of a second slower than the McLaren.
So you're surprised at that?
I was. I thought in the greasy conditions, the four-wheel drive would help me off the line, but ultimately 125 kilos more just wasn't as agile.
I think you're right.
With the score standing at 1-0 to the McLaren, we'll find out later if the 570S can hold its own against the new Porsche in a max speed cornering challenge. Now it's time for us to get a first look and a first drive of a new model. Yes, it's the fifth gear team test, and this time Vicky, Johnny and Jimmy are in charge.
Today, the team tested the Toyota Corolla. Corollas have been around for years and have always been pretty anonymous to look at and a bit dull to drive. But Toyota reckons this all-new model is going to change all that. So, to find out if Toyota's claims are true, we had a genius idea.
Now, this isn't going to be some sort of throw me in a pool of water.
Sadly not.
No, we're not going to get you wet.
Some days there is a first time for everything.
We're now facing a car. See if you can tell me what the car is.
So what we did is we taped up all identifying badges of the new Corolla.
And open.
Oh. Initially, I was in a little bit of shock because the side of that car, to me, looked bland. It's a Toyota.
By Jove, he did really well.
What does make you think that?
This little front, the grille on the front there.
OK.
The little slash.
And then he couldn't quite remember what car it was. Do you know what its name is?
No, it's
Some 50 million sold.
it's not a. It's the. Hang on.
It's a...
It's a car which is everywhere, but nobody ever remembers it.
Hang on. C. It's a C. It's a Toyota. Corolla.
Corolla!
That's a Corolla.
The current chief engineer of the Corolla has said that the previous models were dull. Has he seen this one?
This is the new face of Toyota. We've had this in the Prius and the Mirai hydrogen car. Somebody just went, ah! And they've just gone mad with these swishes and swoops and...
It's very swishy swoopy.
Yeah, but still, I don't think it's the most dynamic car in the world at all. I
No.
mean, if you were a modern-day James Bond, this is the car you drive because nobody would notice you.
Oh, proper stealth.
But I guess traditional Corolla drivers might like that anonymity. They don't want mad design, they want reliability and practicality, like a good boot.
And zips on the seat covering again. When have you ever, in your whole entire car life,
Unzipped a seat
seat
cover?
cover and put it in the wash? I
not-
don't want to know
I'm
that.
not-
No, see, if there was one person that has unzipped their seats.
Nobody was blown away by the exterior, so we had a look at the interior.
Roof lining, it's like the stuff that Amazon parcels come wrapped in.
I do like, I know it's a little thing, this red stitching, because it is the black hole of Kolkata in here.
Yes,
It's very dark.
I
But
agree with you.
that's helping me.
It's actually slightly pink.
What's it like in the back, Libya?
This seat is so big, it's got massive shoulders that I can't actually see forward and I will be sick.
Can I ask, what did you have for breakfast?
Don't worry, Jimmy, I can fix it.
Oh, yeah, look, she's totally...
That's the thing about it. It doesn't offend me, but it's also not... Yeah, it's just not. So, it's not off to a great start for the Toyota in terms of getting us excited. Perhaps a drive around our track will alleviate the boredom. Already, the gearbox, a continually variable transmission on this hybrid model, was starting to grate.
Listen to the CVT, it's howling like a cat.
Why do you want a car that every time you want to accelerate slightly, not a lot, you have to have...
This is the thing,
That's me getting out of bed.
Yeah, It feels like you've got your foot hovering on the clutch and you're just slipping it.
Honestly, I can't remember a huge amount about the drives. It was that dull. It's built in England.
The engine is built in Wales.
Brexit friendly.
Yeah, and it will be really well made. They mounted the old powertrain 10mm lower, 60% stiffer shell, independent rear suspension.
They're feeling that?
It feels quite neat, actually. This has got realigned McPherson struts for more engaging steering, it's true. And
No.
it has, actually. It has.
Has it?
It
I thought
has.
you were joking.
No. The steering's actually nice, I quite like it.
And that's the thing, it is a very refined drive, actually. So the new Corolla is still dull, but a bit nicer to drive. Good try, Toyota. It may be enough for everyday motorists, but not for proper car enthusiasts like us.
This version of the Corolla was meant to be it stepping into the limelight. Unfortunately for me, it's kept the lights turned off. It's a 4.
Here's a brand new car that should excite me in some way, and it doesn't. And I'm just going to give it a pretty average 5 out of 10.
I'm going to give it a 6.5. It's not massively exciting, but you knew that. Which gives this 12th generation Toyota Corolla a rather disappointing team test score of 15.5 out of 30.
Coming up, Vicky's on a mini adventure in 2 classics, both with a modern twist.
It has got oodles and oodles of charm.
And it's a clash of the titans and our nerves as we find out which one of our supercars is best set up for high-speed cornering. Speed gun at the ready.
You might want to have another go.
Oh, I'm all getting a bit nervous now.
Welcome back to Fifth Gear. This year, the original Mini will be celebrating its 60th anniversary. As much an icon of the swinging 60s as Carnaby Street, miniskirts and mods, back then £500 bought you a perfect classless design, loved by everyone from accountants to rock stars. And the good news is there are companies out there preserving these original pint-sized runabouts. From the outside, they look like classic Minis. Rare to see these days, but both have a few modern secrets under the skin.
2 companies have brought the Mini back to life and totally reinvented them for the 21st century. And starting from around £80,000, they have a pretty modern price tag too.
This is the Swind E Classic. Swind hunt down battered and broken original Minis and painstakingly restore them. But that restoration comes with a very modern twist, because instead of the 1.3-litre-old petrol engine under the bonnet, in this car there's an electric motor. An electric Mini! Who'd have thunk it?
The original Mini was pretty nippy for its day, but its day is a while ago now. This electrified version has got 108 horsepower and it'll hit 62 miles an hour in 9.2 seconds. So this has got more than enough about it to duck and dive through today's traffic whilst doing its bit to save the planet.
This E-Classic tops 80 miles an hour, which you would have struggled to reach in an original, and has a range of 125 miles on full charge. It also has regenerative brakes, which means the car uses the kinetic energy from braking and converts it into electricity to recharge the batteries.
Other improvements are to the interior. A lot of heating has been added. I have heated front seats, a heated front and rear screen, and underfloor heating, as well as a USB port. And if you want to dive into the options list, you can have power steering, central locking, electric windows, an electric sliding sunroof, air conditioning, and an infotainment system. Oh yes, all that in a tiny Mini.
It handles just like the original, with the classic cart-like feel, even though it's a touch heavier than the 60s version because of the weight of the battery pack.
This car is pretty idiot-proof to drive. I should know, because I'm driving it. You have got a gear lever that you push forwards to go forwards and pull it back to go backwards. You've got a throttle pedal and a brake pedal, and that's it.
Now, this may not be the biggest, most luxurious car I've ever driven,
but it has got oodles and oodles of charm. Even at these low city speeds, it's fun, it's engaging, it's a joy. It's really, really sweet. I'm not madly missing a petrol engine, but I could seriously do without that electric whine. And the only way to get around that is to put a petrol engine back in it.
if it's an original Mini with its original petrol engine you're after, then this completely remastered version by coach builders David Brown is the one for you. Everything else on the car is brand new, even the body shell, which is stiffer than ever. And all the seams and the gutterings have either been removed or rounded off, so that this car is now as smooth as a bar of soap, and all the better for it, in my opinion. David Brown Automotive is a custom coach builder, and it shows. The attention to detail is fantastic. From the leather to the tweed to the Alcantara roof, all the beautiful aluminium switchgear. These are things that you would normally see in a Pagani, let alone a Mini. Their aim was to, and I quote, embrace the DNA of a design classic and skillfully and respectfully remaster it to meet the demands of modern-day life. And I reckon they're not far off. So jolly well done, chaps and chapesses. The original engine has been re-engineered and pumps out 78 horsepower. That's 30% more than the original unit. It'll get you to 60 in 10.6 seconds. Not bad, but not as quick as the electric Swind E Classic. But it does sound better. As well as a fruity sound, it has got that bouncy suspension that all original Minis had. But at least here, the bounce has been cushioned somewhat to give you a comfortable ride. The grip is pretty decent too, so you can really have some fun with this car. And this is a really fun car, albeit one with a £95,000 price tag. Because it's based on the original Mini, it doesn't have the architecture to support modern safety features. So, for example, when it comes to airbags, it is lacking. Buyers beware. These reimagined Minis cost upward of £80,000, but they capture nostalgia brilliantly. If I had to choose, well, I am a petrol head, and therefore I would go with the one with the petrol engine.
We're in the middle of an epic supercar battle where Corolla and I are going head-to-head to see if the 570S from McLaren has what it takes to challenge the legendary Porsche 911. And it was the mighty McLaren which clinched round one, the agility test.
So, Casey, you've licked your wounds, and we're going to move on.
The next test is all about the ability to corner well, something that's an absolute must if you're going to spend $100,000 or more on a machine that's built for speed.
Each driver gets 3 attempts to record the fastest speed at a quick corner at Landau. It's a proper test of grip on the limit.
And nerve. Shall we get to it?
Runs up first in the Porsche. Now, there are 3 things in particular that contribute to cornering at a high speed.
Firstly, you need an even weight distribution between the front and the back. Too much weight at the front and you'll understeer. Too much weight at the back and you'll oversteer and probably spin out.
With the engine at the back, I've got 60% of the weight on the rear of the car. So that could make it a little bit tail happy.
Secondly, you want to eliminate body roll because that throws weight to the outside of the car, which means grip could be reduced on the inside wheels.
So this particular car is fitted with Porsche's optional PDCC and PASM suspension system. So that helps to lower the car and also stiffen it up, which should help through the corners.
And finally, and crucially, there's the width of the tyres.
Big fat tyres offer loads more grip than skinny ones. The Porsche has got 245s on the front, 305mm big tyres on the rear of the car. Trust me, that's fat. So right, let's give it a go.
Come on, son.
So we've got 3 attempts to record the fastest speed at the apex. Let's see what the Porsche can do.
Coming up to the corner now.
69. Do you know what? That's the national speed limit, and we're doing it around quite a tight corner.
Take 2, and it's already looking quicker.
74.
I'm just warming this bad boy up.
Take 3, and he's flying.
75.
It's got a little bit of understeer as you come through the corner, and then it opens up once you commit to the throttle.
So after 3 runs, the Porsche has done 75 miles an hour at that apex point. I wonder if I can beat that in the McLaren.
Could it all come down to weight distribution and body roll?
So yet again, no frilly PASM or PDCC tech in here. And I've got skinnier tyres. We've got 225s on the front, 285s on the rear. But this car is mid-engine, unlike the Porsche, which is a rear-engine layout. So I should have a better balance. I've certainly got a better weight distribution of 42% on the front and 58 on the rear. So let's see if we can do a really good apex speed.
Can the McLaren manage to beat 75 miles an hour?
Oh, Porsche's winning.
67, not good. He needs a whopping 8 miles an hour around that bend to even catch me.
70. JP, have another go. I'm not really going to tell you what you've done. Have another go. You might want to have another go.
Obviously, I need to go quicker. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not telling you anything.
Well, this is my last go. Oh, I'm all getting a bit nervous now.
He's got to find 5 miles an hour just to equal me. I think you'll find that the Porsche is a surprising winner.
Well, do you know what? I did think that might be the case, actually, because it's a bit pointy, this car, quite twitchy, nervous at the rear. I mean, that last run, I gave it, probably a bit too much on the way in, but you could see I was working a bit harder than you were.
With the less powerful Porsche beating the McLaren on that one, I think Karun might be feeling a bit smug.
So
you were 5 miles an hour. That's a big difference.
Yeah. But if I try and carry any more speed to the apex, I just get understeer.
Yeah, right. Do you think that the tyres play a part? Because obviously they're smaller than the Porsche.
Yeah, maybe that's made a difference. But also I just think, that's got rear steer.
Yeah.
It's got loads of electronic gizmos. This really doesn't have any.
Yeah. There you go. Round 2 to the Porsche.
So that's 1-1. Join us later for the decider of our Supercar showdown, where we'll be racing nose to tail in a flat-out race for the win. Coming up, Jimmy's take into the track in a modern engineering marvel that changed the sports car world.
Oh, that is glorious.
And Johnny's in South Korea testing out the future of autonomous car technology.
I'm listening to what you're saying and then I'm realising that nobody's really driving this.
Welcome back. Now it's time for our resident engineering guru, Jimmy DeVille, to tell the story of a modern-day motoring icon, something that truly changed the game because the manufacturer dared to think outside the box.
This is the Lotus Elise S1, and it's fair to say that when it was launched in the mid-90s, it reinvented the approach to sports car manufacturing. And this is the home of Lotus in Hethel, Norfolk, where this extraordinary British Revolution took place. Lotus founder Colin Chapman had one overriding design principle: just add lightness, he would say. And that philosophy served the company well in the 50s and the 60s. However, in the 70s and 80s, Lotus were producing increasingly exotic, complicated, and occasionally fragile cars. Then, the story took a turn for the worse when they developed the Lotus Elan. They took a real gamble by making the new M100 Elan front-wheel drive. They stuck an Isuzu engine in the front, and it had a pretty tame design. It was a sales disaster. They needed to make changes, and they needed to make them fast. And that's when they appointed Richard Rackham and Julian Thompson to come up with a whole new car. Julian was in charge of the styling and Richard the chassis. 25 years later, Richard is still at Lotus and explains how their combined approach led to something magical happening.
I've heard that at the time that you and Julian were developing this, you both rode Ducatis.
They were an inspiration. It's absolutely right. That shows that engineering can be functional, beautiful, simple.
It is ridiculously small. It's smaller than a modern-day Mini. How did it come about being such a small car?
We decided that a couple of people my size can comfortably sit with this very cosy basing. When we got the occupants close together,
yeah,
that enables this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And this proportion from the rear, that gives a supercar profile
yeah.
to a small car.
But it was the chassis that elevated the Elise to superstar status from the second it was launched in 1996. Because it resulted in a car that handled like no other. The chassis is the backbone of the car, onto which everything else like the engine, bodywork and suspension is fixed. For a car to handle well, this backbone needs to be incredibly rigid, because if it flexes, the suspension won't work properly. However, achieving that strength usually means adding extra weight, and heavy cars lack agility. The revolutionary solution Richard came up with was not only incredibly strong, but also incredibly light, because he chose to use aluminium and form it into shape using a process called extrusion.
So the material is gradually squeezed through a shaped nozzle, if you like, to make this, and it comes out onto a conveyor and then ultimately is chopped to the length that we require. Extrusion design within automotive hadn't really happened before, but now you wouldn't be able to find a car today without an extrusion in it. The design principles have now gone throughout the industry.
So is this something that was really sort of initiated here and came from here and this car?
We were the first.
Having created the component parts of the chassis, Richard came up with an equally unique way of fixing them together. Glue, an epoxy adhesive to be precise.
Okay, now I am probably excited because this is a chassis tub from an Elise. So these are all still extruded sections. You can see going through them there, all that extruded work. It's glued together in such a way that this is a rigid, really stiff structure.
Yes, but not only that, it's gone through this process and that it hasn't distorted.
See, this weighs 67
or 68
kilograms,
yeah.
The whole chassis.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 2.5 bags of cement.
Yeah, that's pretty good, isn't it? But it looks a bit nicer than 2.5 bags of cement.
And it also means I can lift up the chassis of a Lotus.
Absolutely.
It's properly fair to say that when you develop this technique of extruded sections and bonding them together, you were breaking new ground. You were the first people to bring this technology to the car industry.
This was something that was pioneered at Lotus and is now everywhere.
And apart from a couple of minor tweaks, the chassis has remained unchanged for 24 years. I now understand the magic behind the backbone of this amazing little car, but back in the 90s, it was so revolutionary, it also needed a new approach to setting up the suspension, steering and brakes around it. Gavin Kershaw was and continues to be Lotus's main test driver.
Come on then, Gav. Richard gave you this really stiff, extruded and bonded chassis. You gave this car its handling. How did you do it?
The first Elises were actually quite challenging to drive. Because of the lightweight nature, the car has very little weight over the front wheels. So actually we were looking at ways of reducing front grip to keep the front and rear balance. Yaw around the centre, so when we do this, it feels like there's a pin right through
there,
the middle.
I just felt it.
And it's not at the back of the car, or it's not a sort of 205 GTI where it's on the front of the car.
Yeah, I tell you what, going through these corners, it is a beautiful little car to be in. You can just feel it. 118 horsepower, never felt so good.
Time for me to have a drive and feel firsthand how all this amazing engineering comes together in this iconic little car.
Take that one tight, a little bit tight, keep turning to and then turn back. That's the way, and then drive it out.
It's very light. I mean, look at that. There's nothing there. That is lovely. Honestly, if you just said, yeah, this is just hot off the production line, I'd be like, okay, yeah, fine. It's 24, 25 years old.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That is glorious.
When the S1 was launched, a string of motoring magazines called it the greatest sports car ever. And over 20 years later, it's lost none of that appeal. An all-new Elise will be breaking cover in 2020, still using the basic design philosophy of the S1, a model which changed sports car design forever.
Whether we we like it or not, what we drive and the way we drive is going through the biggest revolution since, well, cars were first invented.
For starters, nobody is going to be driving fossil fuel-powered cars a few decades from now. They'll all be electric or hydrogen, or they'll be powered by some emission-free new fuel that we haven't even invented yet.
There's also every chance our cars will be speed limited, which will put paid to any form of supercar. I mean, what's the point of having 400+ horsepower under the bonnet if satellites and robots ultimately control your speed?
And then there's the autonomous thing.
We've already got cars that can park themselves.
How clever is that? Look at that. Banging perfect.
And then there are ones that can self-steer along motorway lanes.
The car is steering itself and it's doing a fantastic job.
Automatically adjust their speeds in traffic.
A car has come in front of me and this Tesla has slowed down.
But let's be honest, we're still a million miles from the point where a car will be able to self-drive us from A to B in our local towns and cities with virtually no intervention on our part. Or are we? To get a glimpse into the autonomous future, I've come to Korea. The Koreans have already taken on the world when it comes to mainstream car manufacture, and are now at the forefront of the self-driving tech that will feature on our daily drivers in the years to come. Which is why I've come to an exclusive test facility run by Mobis, Korea's biggest car parts maker and leaders in the field of autonomous driving tech. To take self-driving to the next level, they've recently completed a 280-acre, £300 million proving ground, within which they've constructed an autonomous town, or fake city, as they like to call it.
Mobis already provide parking assist systems, adaptive cruise control and smart braking systems to a number of manufacturers, but now they want to go a whole step beyond.
Within the 5 miles of tarmac and distinctly Western-looking 2D shop fronts are all the routine obstacles and challenges that a driver might come across on a typical journey, including a series of complex junctions, roundabouts and 3-lane highways. And today I'm going to be driven through it without anybody touching the controls. As principal engineer Jin drove us to the start of the demonstration, I want to know a bit more about the car we were in and the weird name.
So this is just a diesel Kia Sorento?
Yes, right.
But you guys call it the M-Billy?
Yes.
What does that stand for?
M-Billy, Mobis Brilliant Intelligent Learning Library.
Oh my gosh! Fake City is open 24/7 and any manufacturer can use it to test their autonomous tech. Not surprisingly, everything is top secret, which explains why the roads were rather quiet when our cameras turned up. We were about to start the autonomous demo, a 5-mile drive without ever touching the controls.
I think we're nearly ready.
Okay.
Is the car ready? Always ready.
This car?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's telling you it's ready. It just looks really complicated to me.
Currently it's manual mode.
Yeah.
So release the brake and then press the cruise.
Okay. So you don't need to touch the steering wheel?
No.
Okay. Oh gosh, it's even indicating and everything.
I was now experiencing a whole new level of self-driving cleverness, because unlike some current production cars that can simply maintain their position within a motorway lane, M-Billy was navigating its way around Fake City following a complex course that had been programmed into its sat-nav. Jin is a passenger, just like me. In the boot is Billy's brain, a supercomputer so secret we weren't allowed to film it, which constantly processes information from 5 radar sensors, 1 LiDAR sensor and 5 cameras positioned around the car. As the car drives along, the LiDAR uses an invisible laser beam to continually scan the surroundings. It combines this with information received from the 4 radar sensors, which use radio waves to build up a picture of the surrounding environment and the exact location of the car. In this test vehicle, the data is displayed on a screen for further analysis. The cameras also look out for other vital information, such as traffic lights, pedestrians, cyclists and other cars, and feeds that information to the computer, allowing Billy to react accordingly.
So we swerve to avoid the parked car in our lane, we go back to our lane,
And talking of cars, it seems a few more were now out and about on our route.
Then another car comes in and rudely cuts us up.
Right.
We swerve out the way of that. We gently go back into our lane.
Right.
Currently, there are 5 levels of autonomous driving technology, either in use or planned for the future. Level 1 includes minor assist technology, such as adaptive cruise control. Level 5, on the other hand, is totally automated, so a steering wheel is considered optional. At present, M-Billy sits at level 3, which means the driver must be prepared to regain control if necessary. However, the car should be able to tackle almost all driving situations completely on its own.
And level 3 means you have to sit in the driver's seat.
Right.
And pay some attention.
Yes.
So at the moment, you can't drink alcohol and sit in that seat.
No, absolutely.
And you
not.
couldn't text, I couldn't get my phone out and start texting friends, right? Because it still leaves me with the responsibility as the driver.
Right.
How long have you guys been working on level 3 autonomy?
This one?
Yeah, Mobis.
About 2 years.
Okay. It's just, I'm listening to what you're saying and then I'm realising that nobody's really driving this. It knows that's a red light.
Yes.
It's seeing that there.
Yes.
Okay, and it's thinking, right, I've got to stop here.
So it's green light, so we're moving.
So off it goes. Reacts quite quickly, actually. Come up to a junction, indicate right.
Right.
And we go right. Making it seem very easy. It does work. It is working.
And this is just the start. They're now developing an AI camera that will constantly learn from the things it sees. For example, recognising different types of vehicles and new road signs. This will commence trials next year, and testing of a fully autonomous Level 5 car will begin in 2021.
Honestly, will they ever be so clever that they can share roads with us, fallible human beings? Or, in order for this system to completely work, will every single car have to be totally autonomous?
I'm not sure anyone knows the answer to that at the moment, but it's clear the future is closer than you might think.
Coming up, it's the decider of our Supercar dogfight finale to find out if the McLaren 570S can clinch the win from the all-new Porsche 911.
Oh, a bit of oversteer there.
Welcome back to the final part of our feisty supercar fight, where Karun and I are finding out if the McLaren 570S has got what it takes to snatch the title of supercar icon from the legendary Porsche 911. Earlier, it was the 570S that proved itself the most sprightly across our agility course.
Oh, this looks quicker. 20.65.
But it was the Porsche 911 that took victory in the cornering challenge.
So, it all boils down to this, a race.
2 laps of the circuit to see which car has the best blend of power, handling and brakes.
Talking of brakes, they're carbon. They're £6,000 option, you know that, don't you? Standard on this.
Yeah, yours is 150 grand versus 100 grand. You don't get it, do you? It's 50% more money.
Yeah.
In for a penny, in for a pound, Karun, and I reckon this car is well worth the extra cash.
I'm not so sure, but a race-off will at least help us decide once and for all which of these new supercars deserves the crown.
So, I've got 450 horsepower from a flat 6 3-litre twin-turbo engine, which is a lot less than what Jason's got. In fact, 120 horsepower less. But, as we've seen on many occasions on 5th gear, the 911 can punch above its weight. So let's see what we can do in the race.
I actually think I'm going to have my work cut out in this much more livelier McLaren. It's quite a demanding drive.
Now, I've got 570 horsepower underneath my right foot, which is a huge advantage over the Porsche, thanks to, a twin-turbo 3.8-litre engine. Now, even though I don't have four-wheel drive, I reckon if I nail the start, I should have the edge, but it's going to be close.
Meanwhile, I'm in the more graceful car. It's a smooth ride and I know it's not going to give me any bother. I'm feeling quietly confident.
My 4-wheel drive system should help under acceleration. Combined with an extra 30 torque, I could possibly have an advantage coming out of the corners against the McLaren.
For the record, the 911's 0 to 62 time is 3.4 seconds, while the McLaren makes it in 3.2, so it's on.
Awaiting us is a tight, twisty Welsh track, and with just a couple of decent straights for overtaking, getting off the line first is going to be crucial to get the win.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go.
Launch control in the Porsche working superbly into turn 1.
He's got the inside.
Yes, got him, JP. Four-wheel drive helped me off the line, right. Over the curves. I think the Porsche is really very good in terms of ride quality here.
Yeah, fight up, bit of oversteer there.
Even though Corona's taken the lead, I'm not worried. Me and the 570S have got a couple of tricks up our sleeve. On the straights, the pure power of this beast comes into its own.
But now, out of the corners, the McLaren power is coming.
Right, JP. Wow, look at the grunt.
But in the corners, the Porsche is just beautifully balanced.
In the chicane, I can muller these curves way better than he can, I reckon. Right, last corner, this is where it's going to get tricky for me.
And at the end of the first lap, the Porsche is still out in front, but this luscious long straight has got my name written all over it.
Oh, here we go. Let's see if I can tee him up here.
And boom, it was as easy as cutting through butter with a hot knife.
Oh, he's just destroyed me down the straight.
Now I've got the lead, I need to do all I can to hold on to it, and it's not going to be easy.
I tell you what, I jumped on the brakes a bit late there. Only just got past.
The car handling in this Porsche is just like every other 911 we've seen. I could play with it. It's got so much confidence. He's hustling. He's having to really play with it. His tire smoke coming off. The rear tires put down the straight. I just don't have the power to keep up.
I'm struggling to put the extra power down with the McLaren smoking its tyres.
Yeah, through the chicane, I'm gaining. Now the last corner. Little sniff up the inside maybe, but he's just going to put the power down.
And we're off.
The final lap is nearly over. The finish is in my sights. I just need to hold my nerve and get over the line.
Oh, just need the power. Oh. Wow, that was fun.
How quick is this in a straight line?
It's just power, isn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't lose by much in that
No,
race.
and do you know what? It's quite hard work driving this thing.
It did look like hard work. You see the smoke coming off your tyres.
It just is so lively on the rear. I mean, it's great fun to drive, but that seems like a bargain compared to this.
Tell you another thing, JP. This one, 120 kilos heavier, 125 horsepower less, didn't lose by much.
No. It's close, isn't it? That's definitely better around the corners than this, definitely.
Yeah. That one's just got more power, isn't it?
Yeah.
And by the way, did I mention, also costs 50% more. Bye.
Yeah.
So yes, the Porsche managed to get around our track nice and neatly, but ultimately brute power in the McLaren won the day. Also, I reckon I was having a bit more fun too. McLaren have come a long way since my first taste in 2011, and the 570S wins our deathmatch.